Let's talk about what the Boring Company is up to right now in Texas. We know that recently the action has been happening in Las Vegas. That's where the real world tunnel projects are going down. But the success or failure of the Boring Company will inevitably be decided in Texas. We've recently learned about some very ambitious projects in and around the city of Austin that will put Elon Musk's vision for the future of transportation to the ultimate test. It's also the location where the company has begun development of their next generation tunnel boring machine, one that could eventually reach the pace of digging 7 miles per day. But this progression hasn't come without controversy either. We've started to see some pushback and skepticism from local governments in Texas, and early indications that the Boring Company isn't exactly acting very neighborly as they expand their operations into the world. There's a lot of ground to cover here, and I bet some of this news might even surprise you. So, let's get going. We can begin at the heart of the action, Austin, Texas. This is the new headquarters of the Boring Company. They finally moved out of SpaceX's basement and into the wide world to make it on their own. Beginning in December 2020, the Boring Company is officially headquartered in Pflugerville. I don't know if the P is silent or the F is silent. We're very far away from Texas. Either way, this area is just a suburb of Austin with a very unfortunate name. There is also a Boring Company manufacturing and testing facility in the Austin area. This one is in a place called Bastrop, or it's near Bastrop. It's actually out in the middle of nowhere, but that's a whole other thing that we'll get to. So that begs the question, has the Boring Company moved their operation to Texas just because Tesla and Elon Musk relocated to Austin? Maybe. It probably is a factor, but there is actually more going on here than meets the eye. There is a very special feature of geology that is much more valuable to the Boring Company than just being close to Papa Elon. This is called Austin Chalk. In November 2020, the Boring Company tweeted, "Rumor has it that Austin Chalk is geologically one of the best soils for tunneling. Want to find out? Austin jobs now available." And that's not just a rumor. We found independent verification in a 2012 article from geoengineer.org about the Waller Creek Tunnel in Austin. At the time, Deputy Director of the Watershed Protection Department, Joe Pantaleon, told Cut News that, quote, "The Austin Chalk limestone, that's 60 to 70 feet below Austin, is some of the best material to tunnel through. It has enough hardness to tunnel through without requiring a significant stabilization system, but at the same time, the excavation is not like cutting through butter, but pretty close." So if it's good enough for Joey Pants, then it should be perfect for the Boring Company. According to the general soil map of Texas, this Austin Chalk is unique to a soil region they call Texas Blackland Prairie. And if we overlay the soil map on a regular map, then we can see this long, thin strip of Blackland Prairie runs from Dallas down to Waco to Austin and then ends at San Antonio. So we can assume this feature is playing a role in the company's decision-making as well. If they're going to make some unprecedented large-scale tunneling projects, then it's probably nice to start off in the best case possible for ground material. Once they perfect the art, then they can move on to more challenging geology. We know that the Boring Company is very interested in tunneling around both Austin and San Antonio. The plans for Austin naturally include a long loop system that connects the Tesla Gigafactory to the city's downtown, and since the airport is basically right across the highway from Giga Austin, that will get integrated as well. There are a number of other smaller projects that are in talks as well, from a traffic tunnel to connect two major highways to a underground pedestrian walkway that would lead from a local high school to their football stadium, to a tunneling project underneath an old railway line that would allow the route to become both a transit corridor under the ground and an active transportation pathway above the ground. The Boring Company has even pitched their technology to build water drainage systems in Texas. The company obviously admits that they are not hydraulic engineers, but they say that if Austin officials can find such people to help them out with designing the project, then the Boring Company can build it. Over in San Antonio, the Boring Company is proposing a set of twin underground tunnels that would run for 9 miles and connect the city's international airport to the downtown. Now, that idea hasn't exactly gone down so well with the city's mayor, but we'll get into that later in the controversy section. Hang in there. We have also just recently learned that the Boring Company has a master plan for Austin that would connect the city center to its Halo commuter towns of Kyle, San Marcos, and New Braunfels, before finally completing one giant loop all the way from San Antonio to Austin along the route of Highway 35. We had to learn a lot about Texas geography in the course of researching this one. We'll have to visit sometime and make use of it. According to an internal email obtained from the Boring Company's lead marketing hype man, Brian Gettinger, and addressed to a redacted official at the city of Kyle, there is a multi-step plan to complete the loop. Step 1 is to deploy individual loop systems in both Austin and San Antonio. These would be the airport to downtown connectors. Then step 2 is to expand each major city's loop out to its closest Halo community. So Austin would link with Kyle and San Antonio would link with nearby New Braunfels. Then they would link Kyle to San Marcos and San Marcos to New Braunfels to complete the loop. It's all a very ambitious plan, but a really awesome plan as well. It makes perfect sense and would drastically reduce traffic and congestion on the main highway between Austin and San Antonio. The recently obtained email is actually kind of old. It's dated August 17th, 2021, but there's no reason to believe that the plan would have changed. The reason that we are seeing this email now is thanks to Chap Ambrose, who filed a Freedom of Information request to obtain information from the Boring Company. Chap is a really interesting dude, and he has a particular interest in the Boring Company because their brand new manufacturing and testing facility happens to be located right across the road from his house. Remember when we said this was out in the middle of nowhere? The location is out on a dirt road called Walker-Watson Road, which is shared by just Chap and the Boring Company. The reason the Boring Company is out in the countryside is to build and test their latest iterations of the Prufrock boring machine. From their location on Walker-Watson, the company can dig for 4 miles straight out under empty fields and forest to the bank of the Colorado River, and take advantage of that perfect Austin chalk soil. The Boring Company hopes that their research and development at this site will allow them to accelerate the pace of tunneling from their current rate of 1 mile per week all the way up to 7 miles per day, which is probably impossible, but more power to them for trying. Now, Chap isn't a hater by any means. He's actually pretty chill, but like any good Texan, he takes his land pretty damn seriously, and he expects the same from his neighbors. In Texas, you can do pretty much anything you want on your own land as long as you follow a very limited set of procedures, which are mostly in place to protect the natural environment. The first misstep that the Boring Company made with their new facility was not properly respecting the rural water system. It's not like in the city where all of your water just comes and goes through some big pipe and you never have to give it a second thought. The Boring Company moves at the pace of an Elon Musk company, which means they work a lot and work long hours. So instead of driving out from Austin and back every day, the company started building a bunch of lodging houses for staff to live on site, but the problem comes when they started connecting all of these new dwellings into the existing septic system that was set up to support just one little cabin that had previously occupied the site. So that's just asking for a disaster, and to make matters worse, the company failed to apply for the permits necessary to build the new houses and have people live in them. Again, Texas does not have very many laws, but the ones they do have are there for a reason. So, for the people living on the land around the testing facility, They just want to see that the Boring Company has a proper plan in place to deal with their sewage and drinking water that would support an operation of that size. And they want some assurance that all of this tunnel digging experimentation won't lead to any damage or contamination of the water table, which is a really big deal. If the groundwater gets compromised, then it's basically ruined forever. You can't really fix that after the fact. Anyway, Chap Ambrose did a great job documenting the Boring Company development in the area on his channel. You can check that out after if you're interested. Again, Chap's not a hater. He's good people. He just doesn't want his water to get poisoned, which I think we can all relate to. Someone who is a hater, on the other hand, is that mayor of San Antonio. He's really threatening this whole intercity connector loop with his negativity. Back around mid-April, just a couple weeks after we initially learned about the Boring Company's plans for a San Antonio airport loop, we got Mayor Ron Nirenberg's opinion on the matter. In his first comments on the proposal, Mayor Nirenberg told Inside Texas Politics that we have a lot of transportation issues that we want to solve here in Texas and San Antonio. Frankly, that Boring Company tunneling proposal doesn't solve any of them. He went on to add, what I have seen after exploring the boring tunnel concept, again, doesn't suit any of the priorities we're trying to achieve in transportation, end quote. Now, I did some looking into this Mayor Ron, expecting to roast him, but to be honest, he also seems pretty chill. I've got to say, as a Canadian, I had some preconceived notions about Texans that you were all a bunch of Yosemite Sam type characters, but I'm learning that that is not the case. Sorry about that. Anyway, I think Mayor Ron is actually hitting on a very important point that needs to be addressed here, because in its current state, the Boring Company plan doesn't make any damn sense. It's a really stupid idea as it stands today because there is one key piece of the Boring puzzle that remains missing. There is no point for the Boring Company to exist without the Tesla robotaxi to make its tunnels useful. It's all in the name, right? Boring Company. They bore tunnels. And so far, the company has proven to be very good at their mission. Taking a look at their work in Las Vegas, they built a great looking set of tunnels in a very reasonable amount of time for a very reasonable cost, and there were zero disasters or setbacks involved, which for a pilot project is very impressive. And the expansion of the Vegas Convention Center loop out to Resort World Casino has similarly gone off perfectly as far as we can tell. So they build great tunnels. But then what? And I think that's what Mayor Ron is getting at. So we have a tunnel. What do we do with it? As we've also seen from the Vegas Convention Center, the boring tunnels are just wide enough for a Tesla Model X SUV to maneuver through, if it's being driven very slow and carefully. Max speed about 35 miles per hour in the straight parts. And then there is a tendency for traffic jams to occur if too many people try to use it all at once. That's fine for just getting around a convention center, even if the car does get stuck in a tunnel for a few minutes. It beats walking. But if we're looking at the same loop system as a means to transport thousands of people per day from downtown San Antonio to the airport and back with luggage and all, then it would be a goddamn disaster. When we're looking at all of these Boring Company concept renderings, we always see this autonomous electric pod thing that is moving people around at incredible speed. It's effortless for passengers to walk into and out of, and it navigates the system perfectly with an inhuman level of precision. That vehicle is what transforms the Boring Tunnel into the transportation system of the future. But that vehicle doesn't exist yet, and that's a problem. Elon Musk has said that Tesla's robotaxi is coming. And I know he says that every year, and he's literally always wrong about it, but at the Giga Texas opening party and in the subsequent company meetings, Elon has said that Tesla is only working on one single new concept vehicle, and that is the dedicated robotaxi, a fully autonomous, futuristic people mover. And if we had to take a wild guess about where that new vehicle might be manufactured, we could probably say that it will be made in Austin. So that all fits with the Texas master plan there. As far as we know, Elon is expecting Tesla to reveal its robotaxi design in 2023, and then go to production in 2024. Again, Elon has always been wrong about these things in the past, but in the past he did not have the epic, monolithic leviathan of a factory that is Giga Texas. If Tesla can't keep up with Elon's ambitions with the Gigafactory in full swing, then there are going to be bigger problems than a bunch of useless tunnels. Anyway, what do you think? Is the Boring Company the future of transportation, and how long does it take before we see a fully functioning autonomous transit system in a boring tunnel? Drop your theories below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up today if you liked it. That is so important for getting our content out to more people. If you enjoy the content, then you'd probably also enjoy our weekly newsletter, so sign up with the link down below at theteslaspace.com. A huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters who are listed on the screen now. You help us make the best content we can, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.